Keith Brown, and this is a public policy podcast.
I definitely believe it would not have moved as fast as it did. And I think the body cameras is the most important thing that they need to do right now, because it actually showed the whole entire thing. But it will help the people to see it's good for the victims as well as the officers, because it'll bring more accountability on both sides. Therefore, they won't act so hastily when they take action against individuals.
The president is also asking for $263 million for community policing, including $75 million for body-worn cameras. A year-long test in California showed dramatic results. Far fewer complaints of police abuse, and use of force was way down.
Studying public policy requires an understanding of ways to conceptualize and measure. Conceptualization helps us organize our thinking and organize our ideas. An effective conceptualization of public policy takes phenomena that may appear chaotic and idiosyncratic and find patterns. This is often done by adapting broad theories to more particular circumstances, such as broad theories of the policy process to specific policy areas such as health policy, defense policy, or criminal justice policy. Once we have conceptualized a public policy issue, it helps us to measure with variables, what we sometimes called operationalization. The conceptualization serves as a map that connects variables together in a theoretically supported way. My aim in this podcast is to demonstrate several aspects of conceptualization and the measurement of public policy with a case study in the criminal justice policy arena. As you've just heard, police body cameras, an issue that has been high on the policy agenda for many. One way to conceptualize public policy is a discrete choice, such as whether or not the government should mandate or whether or not the government should require. Many criminal justice laws function in this way. You are not permitted to do a certain thing or permitted to do other things. Using this simple idea about public policy, we can think about measuring public policy with dichotomous variables, yes versus no choices made by government, requirement or no requirement, change versus the status quo. Take the case of police body cameras. Using this conceptualization of public policy, we would ask a simple question. Has the state required police body cameras or have they not? This yes versus no conceptualization would allow us to compare all 50 states in a straightforward way. If you did not pass a law to require police body cameras, that says something about whether the state views this as a priority, and if it has passed a requirement. If so, then we can assume certain things about policing in the state. Police officers will be wearing cameras on patrol. We can look to data on police body cameras collected by the National Council of State Legislators to illustrate this. If we apply this approach, we find that 5 states have adopted the policy to require police body cameras: California, Nevada, Florida, Connecticut, and South Carolina. The remaining states, as you can see, have not. Therefore, a conceptualization of police-worn body cameras that applies a dichotomous approach discovers that 12% of states have such laws and the remaining 88% of states do not. An alternative approach to conceptualizing public policy is to view public policy as an aggregation of policy choices. Viewed in this way, we understand public policy as complex and multifaceted decision-making involving bargaining and trade-offs. This type of process does not neatly lend itself to dichotomous measurement, but instead to measuring public policy using continuous and semi-continuous variables like continuums, indices, and scales. So in the case of police body cameras, maybe it isn't just a dichotomous choice about requirements. Maybe other considerations must be taken into account. For example, Even if you do not require a body camera to be worn, government can incentivize the same outcome through funding. In order to get body cameras worn by local officers, funding can be used to encourage districts to purchase equipment. Funding and public expenditures are rarely mandated, but they may serve the very same purpose. Listen here to an official in Nevada describe this issue.
Basically, the program, just like I said, extends what we currently have, but it's just going to give, the officers and the public we serve and the administration all the different views that are available on a call. Right now we're limited to the range that the dash camera can go, and sometimes we miss critical evidence that happens off the dash camera's point of view. So with TASER International, we're going to actually have an integrated system, and what I mean by that is we're going to have one device, we're going to have one body camera, and then the dash camera will also go to TASER International as we progress through this. And so that'll be one device, which will be nice because currently right now some of our troopers would have to wear two devices to have the body camera and the dash camera. So it's really an integration into the future where it'll be easier for our trooper and be better for the communities that we serve.
Thus, we can see police body cameras are more than just one thing and involve the purchase of more than just a camera. Let's look again to the data from the NCSL. This more nuanced conceptualization shows us that 12 states have made policy to provide funding for state and local police departments to purchase body cameras, equipment, staff, and/or data systems. Some, but not all of the states also require police body cameras. By reconceptualizing public policy as varied rather than dichotomous, we have changed how we understand and measure the issue. But public policy can be understood as a competition of competing values as well. Requirements and funding both suggest that the policy issue is security versus less security. Requirements and funding advance the value of security. Fewer requirements and less funding works in the opposite direction. However, security is not the only value at stake. Liberty, or privacy, or the public interest is also a value that relates to this issue. Can body cameras be used in all circumstances? Does the public need to be notified that they are being recorded? And what can be done with the recordings after they are made? Listen again to the reaction in North Carolina to the passage of a police body camera law there.
Sean, this bill passed at the end of the legislative session. The only remaining step right now is Governor McCrory's approval. But those opposed to the bill say it creates too many restrictions on releasing that body camera footage.
Using your guns on our fathers and sons.
A message of solidarity in the face of violence and tragedy nationally.
What we've seen in the two deaths in Baton Rouge and Minnesota speak to the need of increased police accountability.
And that's why the Southeast Asian Coalition and other groups took to the governor's mansion. They're calling for Governor McCrory to veto a bill that establishes rules for the release of police body camera or dash cam video. Opponents say the rules are too restrictive.
The public deserves to see footage in cases where it's of public interest.
Now, returning again to the data from the NCSL, we can see 6 states that have made exceptions to eavesdropping laws in order for police to wear body cameras. This is a portion, but not all of the states that require body cameras. It seems clear, by adding further nuance to our understanding of this policy issue, we have deepened and broadened how we can measure it. Now, as you can see, reconceptualization of policy allows us to change our measurement. In order to measure, we also have to decide on units of analysis. Thus far, we have used states as our unit of analysis. We could have also used cities, counties, or even police offices. Whatever we use, we want to use a more nuanced conceptualization to leverage better measurement. For example, look at Nevada's law. The law requires a requirement of highway patrol officers, new funding appropriations, and a provision on the eavesdropping law. Conversely, if we look to Kentucky's law, which has no requirement and does not address eavesdropping, but it does create a new grant program. And finally, New Hampshire, which does not require and provides no new funding, but does address the issue of privacy. Each of these three states has adopted a different policy. It is not a difference of yes versus no, but one of degrees, with Nevada addressing a variety of dimensions of the policy issue and the other two states fewer. Out of this, we can then create a public policy index. An index or a scale is a way to combine related variables into a single aggregate variable that serves to summarize the policy. In our case study, the body camera policy index might be an additive variable that combines requirements plus funding plus privacy. Nevada would then score a 3 on the index, Kentucky and New Hampshire a 1, and Mississippi, which hasn't done anything, a 0. We could then use that index to make comparisons to other variables such as the crime rate, political culture, and public support or opposition to police body cameras. So what have we learned? First, conceptualization allows us to think more clearly about public policy. It helps us organize our ideas and connect theory to measurement. Second, public policy can be conceptualized as a dichotomous process resulting in a yes-no choice, a vote for or against, keep the status quo or change it, action or inaction. Using this conceptualization, we would measure using dichotomous variables, 1 versus 0. Third, many public policies are too complex or multifaceted for that approach. Instead, we might reconceptualize this process as a series of choices or a process of negotiation and bargaining. Choices fall along a continuum in this case, between action and inaction, rather than action or inaction. If we take this approach, we move from dichotomous variables to continuous or semi-continuous variables that involve indices or scales. These new variables can then be connected to other variables that our conceptualization would argue to be related. This podcast has tried to explain and apply the ideas of conceptualization and variable management.